human being who is engrossed in five senses is neither an instrument of God nor a co-creator with God. This is unfortunately majority of humanity who are intelligent mammals. The journey of becoming an instrument or co-creator of God begins with the awakening of inner light. Up until that moment, the intelligent mammal is bound by the senses and the mind. Their domain is plainly physical. Their domain is the very bottom of creation. So in the eyes of God, these lives that unfold, including technological advancements economical advancements as a civilization, even going to moon or Mars, is just an expansion of intelligent mammals to the neighboring plots of land, which animals have done for thousands of years. They migrate where life is more suitable, where life can be extended. It is the same pattern, just expanded from a human perspective. That doesn't bring anyone closer to God. Neither it's God's will or being an instrument of God. Becoming aligned with God's source divine is a transformation of human being into a spiritually awakened soul. It involves living according to spiritual ethics, meditation, getting in touch with a spiritual master, aligning with the divine light and sound stream, and becoming to realize the actual nature of God. Many people who awaken these days, especially those who follow the non-dual path, they realize the self or the light of awareness. But when it is generalized as the self, as awareness, what tends to happen, and what I witnessed, is that people are still not aligned with the will of God. They still don't put themselves to service of God. They say, well, all right, I realized I am the light of awareness beyond the dualities. But being the light of awareness, what is the purpose then? Is that the will of God, just to keep being aware of dualities? Of course, it is an important attainment. However, the will of divine is a whole different plateau. This is why the real spiritual masters, such as Meher Baba or Kirpal Singh, they were very clear. Meher Baba as a service of God, service to humanity, and Kirpal Singh has brought the teachings of man-making, or changing the man, a human being, into a spiritually awakened soul who is in alignment with the divine. Otherwise, those awakened in awareness or as the light of the self, they have no direction. At first, of course, it's beautiful and important part of the spiritual awakening journey, but after a few years of having awoken to awareness or even full consciousness as the self, what happens is that people continue living their usual lives, taking care of usual things, living, continuing ordinary life. So is that truly being the instrument of God or a co-creator with God? No, it's not. Yes, it is more awakened life, but without that deep will of God and alignment with that will, one continues to simply live their life as before. Now, simply more awakened life as before. There are many angles, many considerations of what I just said. But if you notice in your own spiritual path, if you remember, let's say 3 years ago, when you have awoken inner light, for example, or 5 years ago, or however many years ago was that, you got excited, you started to explore the inner realms, and you started to listen to your higher self, to your inner guidance. And with the eyes of wonder, you wanted to discover more. But let's assume now that you remained at the same level of consciousness for a few years. And this is what happens, especially at the stages of inner light, inner love, is that the spiritual ego or the higher ego has got used to the awakening, and the higher ego continues to function as the higher ego. Same can happen to the enlightened ego. When one opens awareness or even full consciousness, if one is not always constantly doing the inner checks, is that the will of God? Is that in alignment with the will of the divine? One will fall into life, back into the streams of life, of course now with a greater capacity, with a greater ability, but still falling into the life, even if it's awakened life. So therefore, to clarify what is awakened life, the best example on the whole earth is Buddha. the awakened one. And he was a world teacher. He instructed the new ways of awakening, aligning with the source that he called awakened emptiness. But it's so much more than awareness or the awakened self, because he was in absolute alignment with the will of that awakened source. He had a worldwide mission to bring those teachings, to instruct the monks and help them to enlighten and to realize the actual essence of God. So that's the will of God, yes. Of course, those who awaken to higher levels of consciousness and who help others to awaken, that contributes to the higher will overall. But those who continue their ordinary lives, having received the biggest gifts, and then basically closing the treasure box and continuing with the ordinary life, are not the most ideal instruments of God, let alone co-creators of God. So an instrument of God is the one who is utilized for the higher will of God. It is synonymous to co-creator of God. It is actually literally nearly exactly the same. In essence, it is the same, because the co-creator of God is the pure instrument of God, and at the same time is assisting in creative processes, co-creation, in creative divine processes. An instrument could be used for a specific purpose and reason, but a co-creator also has a creative capacity to expand God's nature in that moment, in space and time. So this is what we do at Divine Marga. We co-create, we expand the divine itself. Within the regions of divine, we have established our unique path. And within the creation, we are expanding this path, bringing this path, and materializing this path all the way down to Pinda here on earth. So not only being the instruments, but also co-creation. So to become an instrument of God, one must surrender completely to God's will and letting the divine light and sound stream flow through the soul, unhindered. A very well-known example is that the true disciple is a flute in the hands of God. God plays his melody through those who have emptied themselves of ego.